Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Marc Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread as we talk college basketball exclusively here today on the show. And with that, I want to welcome in our co-host from Las Vegas, a pair of legends, Jim Feist himself. Jim, how are you doing?
Doing good out here.
Cool.
We've been
Weather
freezing.
good?
We've been freezing for about a week, right, Andy?
I don't know about a week, but I know we had about 2.5 weeks of really nice weather with the highs in the 70s. But the last few days, at least, we've been down in the 50s. I think we got into the mid 30s overnight. Yeah, I know that makes a lot of people really upset for you, like Greg and Mark, who are Mark is okay; he's used to it. Yeah, Greg is probably the one who feels it the most.
I have a new thing when people ask me, "What's the weather down in Florida?" and I say, "It's par 72."
Nah. Indoors or outdoors?
Doesn't matter. You can make it either or. Okay.
By the way, I will mention the one football note that's worth mentioning, and that is I think it was FanDuel yesterday came out with their season win totals for the NFL.
For the NFL, wow.
for those who are interested, yes.
I'm sure
which is about everybody, by the way.
I'm sure they're circled. I guess you can't make too much of a wager on those, I would guess.
No, I would imagine they're limited. And the books do the smart thing because they know a lot of people like to bet them and bet them early, even though there's so much information yet to be determined. So, and the books are going to hold your money for a year.
Well, that's the
so it makes sense from the book. It makes sense from a sports book standpoint.
That's the luxury. Yeah. Greg DePalma, how's everything going for you these days?
Good. I'm excited about getting into college basketball with more than just myself. I've been doing that on Fridays for the past 4 or 5 weeks. So it's good I have some company. I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple more weeks to go for March Madness. And I think this year is going to be a lot better than last year and really the last few years because there's a lot of good teams that can win. Maybe even whoever ends up in the Elite Eight. You could probably say if they're all the top 8 teams, all 8 of them can win the national championship. That's how good it's going to be this season.
Well, last year was the first time, I think, in 20 years and only the second time in tournament history that the top 4 seeds, all 4 number 1 seeds made it. In fact, I think the final 8 were the 4 1s. I think there were 5 1s. Houston and Florida were both 1 seeds. 2 of them, I think there were 2 number 1s, a 3 and a 4 in the top 8. 5 number 1s, a 2, 3, and a 4.
I think one of the causes for concern, what I saw last year, perhaps even the year before, was the lack of success for mid-majors in this tournament. And I think a lot of that is due to the NIL money, the money that they're paying the players here today, and just absolutely just going in and stripping out all these players from the mid-majors.
The one that comes to mind, I think, was McNeese, who pulled, I think, an opening round upset, and I don't remember too many other mid-majors.
That might have been that. Maybe one other, Andy. Yeah. It was really a lack of upsets on the NCAA basketball tournament card here lately. Have you heard anything about that all, Jim, about how well these power conferences fare in the NCAA tournament these days as opposed to in the past when we had all these upsets, which everybody loved?
There's absolutely no question it's going to change because the mid-majors cannot hold on to these players, and they're all gravitating up the chain to the major teams, and we're not going to see those kind of upsets. We're just not, and it's going to change our perspective on how you look at a 17 or a 16 or whatever it is. It's not going to work anymore. You're going to see a lot of favorites just blowing people away.
Now, the one thing that I will point out that could change that a little bit is with the success of Indiana in football last year and this year gives a lot of confidence to those smaller teams that you can, if you find the right player, for example. And in basketball, it's a game of 5 people, so it's a lot easier to have a great season if you get that one blue chip player. And the alumni of a mid-major team can afford that. We might see a little bit more of that, but I think that still might be a year or 2 away because first of all, the overall talent in college basketball is as high and as widespread as it's ever been before, and so it's now going to be a bidding war. But it does leave the chance. Now, the one team this year that's going to be the interesting team is Miami of Ohio. They're unbeaten, and they're going to be highly motivated because their coach did say that if they go through the regular season unbeaten, and I think they got like 4 games to go, he's going to coach a game in a Speedo or something like that. And I think that sort of thrills the kids. Yeah. I think that that's a brilliant motivational technique, because it has the kids all of a sudden refocused, takes a lot of the pressure that might normally be on them to remain unbeaten off of them, because they got something really to look forward to, and they don't have to wait to the end of March to achieve that. They can achieve it, before the tournament start. And I think the first tournament, the Horizon, starts a week from this coming Monday, March 2nd.
Wow. Well, I'm going to let our listeners know out there. Now we're all college basketball here, guys. We're going to hit the NBA a little bit more starting next week, now that the NBA is back off the All-Star break. But we're going to focus here today on the show primarily on a couple of main topics, and I think you're going to like what we're going to discuss here. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of college basketball you're looking at it from the standpoint of, where are these teams today? What are the betting futures for these teams? We're also going to key in on 3 top games on Saturday's college basketball card. It will be our dynamic trio of basketball games. We're going to break down Iowa State BYU, which is a pretty nice game, Arizona Houston, and Michigan Duke. That's a nice triple header. We're going to tear those games apart. We're going to also go around the table and ask everybody what their favorite game on the card happens to be on Saturday. And we'll also wrap it up with another insight that I have from the Coffee Club that I want to share with everybody, that I think will put money in your pocket between now and the March Madness NCAA tournament ends. So, guys, with that, let's tip it all off. Starting here, I want to remind everybody that if you haven't joined us, hit the join button now, hit the like button, ring that bell, and also if you would also visit our community page, because there you can buy a bundle of perks from Jim Feist, myself, Andy Iskoe, Greg DePalma. Just check it out all here on the Sports Platform Network on our community page on the Bet On Sports Network. Bet Online. What am I saying? Bet Sports Network here. Okay, guys, let's get to the NCAA basketball tournament. And let's talk first, if we can, about some bubble teams. And that's going to be the talk between now and then. A lot of people have made a lot of good livings doing that, Jill Lenardi and the likes. But it's all of what college basketball is. We're less than 4 weeks away from Super Sunday, Selection Sunday here. And Andy, I'm going to start with you. What basketball teams do you feel are legitimate bubble teams here right now that have to get it in gear or get out?
Well, I like to take a look at the projections of the ESPNs and the CBS, and a lot of them came out a couple of days ago. And I think like the first team out, which probably helped itself last night, was Missouri with their upset win over Vanderbilt, a game in which they had a nice lead, came back. I think they held on to a win by 1 point. So I think that that's a team that has a good shot. Another one that also looks as though the first 4 out, a team that's been playing nicely all season, New Mexico from the Mountain West Conference, has had a fine season. They've had the tournament experience for a number of years as well. Virginia Commonwealth, who I believe suffered a key injury the other day, was also on the list of teams that have considered to be bubble teams. So as long as something like the teams like the Missouri and the New Mexicos and VCU, as long as they keep winning, there are going to be other teams that are going to play themselves out of those at-large teams. Now, keep in mind, and as a matter of fact, I went over to the CBS where Andy Katz does his, and what he does is he lists the teams from 1 to 68, and basically you're looking at the last 23 teams are automatic qualifiers, including a lot of them from those mid to low majors. So basically we're talking about a handful of teams that let's see, they've got I think about 9 or 10 teams that he's got filled in as automatic qualifiers from the big conferences. So there's going to be still in the regular season, with these teams having from 3 to 5 games remaining, a lot of teams that are currently in that, say, looking for that seed 9 through 11, as far as being the teams that are going to fill out the final at-large bids. They're going to be playing each other. So if those teams that are currently listed at the various brackets that you look at, if they start facing each other and keep winning, they will work themselves from off the bubble onto the field of 68 of the 30 whatever at-large teams that they have. And right now I've got Missouri and New Mexico in there. Missouri probably the number one of that I have in there. And VCU, if they can play well despite some injuries there, they have a chance to work themselves back on, because it's a law of mathematics that a lot of these teams are going to be facing each other and they can't both win a game.
Well, Greg, let me ask you this about as far as bubble teams are concerned. In each conference, each of the major conferences, there are teams that you would call locks. They're going to be there. We know it. They don't have any threat or worry moving forward. There are some teams that are teetering that expect to be there. It would probably be a surprise if they weren't. But it's the teams that have some work to do. And if I can be a little bit more specific with you, Greg, how about if we hop into the Big Ten Conference and you tell me what teams have work to do inside the Big Ten Conference, those that are squarely sitting on the bubble?
I think it's Ohio State and USC. Those would be the two teams. USC, unfortunately, lost one of their matter of fact, it was their leading scorer after the first 5 games of the season. Outdone. Now they just lost one of their other big-time scorers. He's been out for a few games. They got blown out by Illinois. I think it was last night, the night before.
Yeah, that's a tough loss on their home court because they were blown out.
Yeah. So I think they've got too many injuries. So I don't know. They're going to need a big win. And Ohio State hasn't beaten anybody. I don't even know why they would be considered in at this point. That's the one thing that I think they still have to do. I still think Ohio State needs to do something in order to give them some credibility, except just have a lot of wins from the Big Ten Conference. So I think just 2 teams. I'd say USC and Ohio State would be the only 2 bubble teams. I think Wisconsin and Iowa are definitely in at this point. Matter of fact, I think Wisconsin.
Greg? What about UCLA?
Yeah, UCLA, that's a good point. I think that right now, unfortunately, that's another team that is on the outs as of now. But they're a bubble team for sure, but they've got to get some wins, and it's another team that has been dealing with a key injury. One of their best players, I think their best players been out for like 10 games, and they got to get him healthy. I don't even think he's been back yet. So they just got blown out too. Who'd they get blown out by? They just got blown out by Michigan State.
Michigan State. I think that was last night.
Yeah. So another team, UCLA, USC. They bad losses. They've had injuries. So yeah, I think they're on the outs right now. But so they got work to do. Those would be the 3 teams that have work to do: Ohio State, USC, and UCLA.
Well, Jim, let me ask you this then. In this same theory, this same thought, over to the Southeast Conference, the big boy, along with Ohio State, at least as far as population is concerned, the amount of teams in the conference. If I threw these teams at you and you would tell me in or out or on the bubble, what would you say? Texas A&M, Auburn, Missouri, in or out or on the bubble, those 3 teams?
I would say in.
In.
Yeah.
I don't think Auburn's in at this point. I think most people agree with Jim, but after the loss the other night to Mississippi State, it's like enough already. They're 2 games over 500, and they haven't done anything for the longest time. Bruce Pearl's resignation destroyed the program, and they haven't recovered. His son has not done the job. And you can't put an SEC and look, Jim is just saying exactly what most people do have in Auburn in, but I can't imagine Auburn's in now after losing to Mississippi State. I mean, enough already.
With whom, by the way, they are tied for 11th and 12th at 5-8 in the conference. You can't put in a team below. Right now, like the one that I'm looking at, the ESPN, they have 10 teams from the SEC. So maybe that's where a lot of people are going. But I cannot make a case for Auburn right now. And Greg said exactly the right reason. You make a coaching change as late as that happened, it totally upsets everything. And just because Daddy is good doesn't mean the son is going to be good, or doesn't mean that the son is going to be good immediately off the bat.
The one thing I'd have to say is that Greg and Andy are 100% right. They shouldn't be in, but we've seen so many times over the years that these decisions are made and they're based on politics.
Yeah, sure.
And that's not. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just saying it is what it is. But
Well, that's the
you know,
problem. That's the problem they have in college football. It's fewer teams, but with 68 teams and like 30 something at large teams in college basketball, you listen to the selection committee after the show, and they're saying, "Why did this team get in?" Well, because they did so and so. Okay. Well, why did this team get left out? Because they also did so and so. Oh, well, that team didn't do this, even though the team that the team that they talked about getting in was identical as far as they also didn't do this. It's like everything else. It's political.
I will say this though. I think one of the things we have to realize at this bubble season is that there are going to be a handful of teams that get in that are just not good.
So let me ask, we have this undefeated team that everybody bet against the other day with Massachusetts and Miami, Ohio. Nobody's beating them. I mean, first of all, should they get in? And if they got in, do they have a chance to do anything?
Well, that's a great question, because if they don't win the conference, have they done enough to get in on their body of work so far season to date?
How much more can you do but win every game? Except, which is what I go back to what I talked about in how I look at football games and basketball games, strength of schedule. They don't have strength of schedule.
No.
And what the committee does is they'll take them and they will put them as an 8 or 9 seed, knowing that if they happen to win the first game, they get blown out by the number 1 seed in round 2. That's how they treat teams like that they don't really feel deserve to be there, other than having a really good record. But if they play, if let's say they are seeded, well, let's use 12. They go up against a number 5 team, which is very often a 3rd or 4th place team in a major conference. They might have a chance to pull an upset in that round, but then they go up against a team, if they're a number 5 seed, then they go up against the number 4 seed, who's probably a 2nd or 3rd place team in a major conference. So, they may get a chance to win a game, but that's how the committee does it. As much as they screw up the seedings, they make sure that the teams that they felt, quote unquote, we had to put them in for some reason. They seed them 8 or 9, so they get past. They probably lose in the first round, and if they do, they get blown out by the number 1 seed in that bracket.
So, Greg, this team finishes 33-0. They sweep everything. They win out. They win the MAC championship game. Where does the NCAA tournament seed this 33-0 basketball team?
I wouldn't think it would be far off from what Andy said. I don't think they're going to be maybe a 7-8 type of seed because of their strength of schedule. It's just look, they're going to, depending on who they play, they're going to be a dog. They're going to play one of these, power conference teams, like a 5th place team in a power conference, and they're going to be like a 5 or 6 point dog in the first round. They're going to lose. They just haven't beaten anybody. They haven't played anybody. So, look, I think it's great. And I think that if they lose in the tournament, the MAC tournament, undefeated,
they wouldn't make it if they lost.
That's going to be almost unfair, but it would just be proof that when it really counted that, but that's a big question, because
we have a situation where a lot of people talk about expanding. The 60.
Oh, please no.
Please. I know. I'm just talking about what people talk about.
Yeah, I know.
But when you look at the NIL and the portal taking the best players to the group of, let's say, 32 or 40 teams, that goes against expanding, because the bottom teams that get into this conference, into this NCAA tournament, are less qualified than they were before the NIL and the portal.
Yes.
So instead of expanding, we almost have to start talking about splitting and having 2 groups of tournaments, instead of having to have these teams that have no chance playing in this big tournament where they can't win.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if they had like a 12, 16 team tournament to get into the tournament. Something like that, like the top 4 teams get in the tournament or something, because they play right away anyway. The season ends, and 4 days later or 2 days later, they're playing the tournament. I mean, it's okay to have a week off and let these other teams battle it out for the final 4 spots to get in. I mean, I wouldn't mind that.
In effect, that's what they do, but it's the first 4. Now, I will give the NCAA a little credit, because they could basically have, a total of 8 teams that are numbers that would be number 16 seeds. At least they have play-ins. Like last year, they had North Carolina and San Diego State play an 11 versus an 11, and they had another 11 versus an 11, and then they had 16 versus 16 and 16 versus 16. So what Greg would say is, yeah, they could do that. Let's say for the teams that might normally be seeded based on their record somewhere, let's say between 8 and 12. So like for example, in Miami of Ohio, who goes 33-1 because they don't win the conference tournament, would get a chance to get in. They have a good record. But do they belong in the field? Well, here are 7 other teams that they're going to be competing with, for 4 spots.
And you look at some of these teams.
How many legitimate teams are there to win the national title?
I would say realistically, Greg mentioned the Elite 8. I would go as far as saying Sweet 16.
I wouldn't mind that either. I mean, you're looking at it right here, and unfortunately, I mean, I'm so distraught about Texas Tech. They were like going to be one of my championship
losing
little outsiders. What's that?
Losing Toppin?
Yeah, it's such a shame.
That's a huge loss. Yeah.
I mean, they're done now. It's just so bad. They beat Arizona. They beat Houston. They were going to be a really nice and they were still a heavy pick. I mean, I was able to get them. We were talking before Randy and I were able to get them at 40-1, and
a week ago,
and that's out the window. I mean, it's just awful. But yeah, I look. You look at this. Out of these teams, this is Cat's order, and out of this order, he's got Florida 15. So yeah, I would say 16. I think Andy's right.
Yeah.
I think.
And by the way, he has them as an automatic qualifier, and he's saying that there's no team better than Florida, and he's showing very little respect for the SEC to have them that low.
So as I said earlier, Kenny White has Florida number 2.
Yeah, I don't have them quite that high, but I have them much closer to 2 than I have them to 15.
Yeah,
I hit on that in the coffee club, guys, about Florida and where they've come from. They started slow, as they were expected, being the defending national champion, but they've come on like blazes.
Yeah.
And it's basically because they've been cleaning the board, rebounding like madmen. And right now, there's no team in the country that's rebounding better than Florida is. So now they're the defending national champion. Do you think, Andy, that puts more pressure on Florida being the defending national champion, or are they just going to roll with the flow and right now with the big run that they're on and let that take them to the tournament?
I would think that the latter is probably going to be what you said, because of the fact that they did come out of the gate slowly, and maybe they were feeling a little bit of pressure, or maybe they were overconfident coming back in with this year. The fact that they struggled and have managed to overcome it, I think, only gives them more confidence. Now, I guess they could have a little bit more overconfidence like they may have had early, but the coach can remind them, hey, this is how you guys played in November. You thought you were the best in the world, and you were humbled a little bit. And so now I think that he can get them focused a little bit, and they're going to be a dangerous team. And again, I think the SEC is a very solid conference this year, and they will be at least in, I would say, the quarterfinals and semifinals. If they get advanced that far, they will be playing top quality teams to get there. So they will have again won a conference and had to play some very good teams very late in the season. Now they don't have a lot of teams ranked all that highly. If he has them as an automatic qualifier and he's got them only at number 15, but there's still going to be a number of teams even in the mid-20s in the SEC that are capable of making runs. But as I say, I'd look at teams in the top 16, and I'm not necessarily looking at the top 16 of this list. I'm saying once the seedings come out, if you're seeded 1 through 16, I think you have a realistic chance. And you might even include 1 through 20, because seeds 17, 18, 19, and 20 are number 5, and they would face the number 4 teams. And there's usually not a huge difference between a 5 and a 4, because they both will have to get by the number 1 seed in round 2.
So, Greg, if they play well, Texas Tech down the road, rally around Toppin, and perform better than expected, will they be seeded as a top 16 team? Even with Toppin being out, because they've made that decision before in the past. Your big players out, your standing goes down.
It's possible, yeah. But
it depends how they play, and if they happen to win. If they happen to win the Big 12 tournament, because there's still talent on that team, then I think the committee would have them highly seeded.
You almost have the same question going on in Kansas with this kid Peterson, who's taking himself out of every game. I mean, they're a good team, and with him, they could be a great team, but I don't know what the hell's going on with him. He's mentally.
Well, I did a little research into that, And when we talked about it last week, and I kind of, you got to take it, Bill Self, whether or not he's smoke screening or not, but I'm going to take it for his word. And then he just said it. Said, look, he had an injury, a hamstring injury, I think it was. It kept him out for like 10 games. And that was 10 of the 15 games he missed. He said he probably could have put him in a couple of games early, but he didn't want to he didn't want to put him in early. Figured, why rush it? That cost him an extra couple of games. Then one of the most recent games when he didn't play, he said that he was trying to get back. He probably shouldn't have been coming back because he had an illness. And then he went on the practice court before the game. He said he was a little dizzy. Doctor said can't play, didn't play. So he thinks it's overboard. He thinks that he's had serious injuries, serious illnesses. He's not taking him out of games, Peterson. And I think we have to now see so far. I think that, we haven't seen anything happen to the team. They got blown out by Iowa State, but that was predictable because they had blown out Ohio State previously. They were coming off the big win against Arizona. And then they just came out, what was it, yesterday, the day before, they just blew out Oklahoma State. So I just think we need to keep an eye on them. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it was just blown out of proportion.
By the way, the Oklahoma State win, the Oklahoma State decent team, not tournament team, but it was on the road, which has been an issue where Kansas has had some difficulties this year.
Well, he doesn't come out for the second half. And obviously Bill Self, I saw his press conferences, he didn't have any idea what the hell was going on. And most people are being a little harder on him, Greg, than you are. They're wondering whether or not he's going to be even a number one draft choice, because can you really depend on him? Is he going to be a real diva when he gets the big contract and gets into the league? I'd have to say some people are going to have to start questioning that.
Yeah, I think you should question it. But let's be the jury. Let's take a look at these upcoming games. Let's take a look at the tournament. Let's see if he plays. And most importantly, let's see how the team responds, because let's see if it becomes a virus in the locker room. And I think we would know that in the next couple of weeks. And if it looks like everything's okay and he's playing and they're winning, then I think everything should be okay. But, I'll keep an eye on it. I'm not all in on defending him. I just think maybe I'll just give him a little bit of a second look.
The other players on the team might actually be resentful of the fact that he's doing this.
True. Yeah. So that's why I think it could be a virus, but
he could generally, they are a capable team and could win the national title. It's possible with them.
Yeah.
And he could be the reason they don't do it.
And they're not even in that 16. They're 18.
Right.
So that shows you again, St. John's is 21. That's why this tournament, and then you can even go further than that, because look, you got teams like Villanova at 23 here. Villanova has had one win all year against a significant team. And that significant team is Wisconsin, who I like a lot as a sleeper, but that's Wisconsin. They haven't beaten anybody else. And they're 23. George has done nothing. And they're 25. So that's what I'm saying. There's going to be about 5-6 teams that get into this tournament that you're like, they don't even deserve to be here. They haven't beaten anybody. And those are the teams that we're going to definitely talk about when we get the bracket. But you never know. That's what makes the tournament fun, because even the questionable teams can win a game.
Who has the best record against quad one clubs?
It's probably got to be, just thinking about their schedules, it's got to be like Duke,
the number one team in the country,
or a Michigan,
right.
or I don't know how many wins Gonzaga has, but Gonzaga has some really good wins. UConn actually has some good wins.
The problem with Gonzaga is they lost by 40 to Michigan early in the season.
Yeah.
They're still going to be in there, but that's probably the best team that they face, although they have had some other good competition. That's an ugly loss, but it's not going to keep them out.
I think you got to throw out the averages and look for the mean. You got to throw a game like that out the door.
I like to take a look at games. For example, Greg had a good thing about Villanova and Wisconsin. Okay. Wisconsin may be the best team that that they beat, but Wisconsin is not a team that most people would think is capable of winning the national tournament, as opposed to, for example, a Gonzaga, that ugly loss to Michigan. Now, they're going to probably win the West Coast and be an automatic qualifier, but that still shows that even without Gonzaga, they still have some other good wins in their non-conference schedule. So when it comes down to tournament time, and certainly once the field is set and we know the team's paths to playing in the title game, I take a look at how these teams did against not other tournament teams, although that's something I do take a look at, but other non-conference teams who are highly seeded. Can they beat can a team like a Gonzaga, have they been able to beat a team that's say seeded 1 through 5? I want to see how many teams have done that, because you're going to have a lot of teams in the 1 through 5, multiple teams from the elite conferences.
Well, guys, let's take a look at the Big 12 conference, one of my favorite conferences. And we would have had what I would call 6 locks coming out of that conference, with Texas Tech being one of those 6 up until about a week ago. They still may well be just that. But we're looking at legitimately 5 really rock-solid teams that will be there: Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, and BYU. Which team do you feel, Andy, is the best team inside the Big 12 conference? Which team has the best chance of cutting down the nets from the Big 12 conference?
Well, the problem I have with BYU is twofold. They are just 7-6 in conference play, and they just lost the kid Saunders, I believe, last night or over the weekend, I think. And they've got a big game coming up this weekend. So BYU might have some difficulty. But as far as the top, well, I'll still throw Texas Tech in there as one of the top 5 teams. Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, and Texas Tech. Now, they did lose Toppin, but let's see how they play without Toppin, because they can still play themselves into a nice seed if they say, yeah, we're missing a good guy, but, we had enough NIL money that we were able to load up on depth, and so we're going to show it right now without Toppin. That might happen. Of the teams there, I like Iowa State, but I still think Arizona and Houston are the top 2 teams. I was a little concerned about Arizona losing 2 in a row. It's not unusual, because they were like 23-0 or 22-0, and they lost that first game. So I would have understood if they struggled in their second game after that first loss, or even if they won and had trouble covering what was, I think, a decent number. But the fact that they lost, it takes a little bit luster. But I think they recovered nicely. Houston is a team that I've liked all year. Arizona's 24-2 overall, 11-2 in conference. Houston also 11-2 in conference, 23-3 overall. Remember, they played in the national championship game last year, lost by 2 to Florida, and they did so with an outstanding defense, and that defense is still very good this year. In fact, I don't know where they rank nationally, but it's got to be in the top 2 or 3. 61.6 points per game that they allow. Average margin of victory, 16.3. I would say right now it's a close call for me. I would rate, because Arizona is also good on defense, but not at that same level as Houston. So I would rank Houston and number 1 and Arizona a close 1A.
Jim, Houston loses last year to Florida in the NCAA championship game. We all know how good they are defensively, number 1 team in the country, defensive field goal percentage. I read this morning, I was a little bit surprised, Kelvin Sampson is crying the blues that he's running out of money at Houston, NIL money to sign these players with. I think he ranks number 3 or 4 in the country right now for the players that he does have, but he's saying next year they might not even be in the top 10 as far as being able to sign.
Why don't you do what Patrick Mahomes does? Give up part of your contract so for the benefit of the team.
Oh, Kelvin Sampson?
Yeah.
They don't get paid anywhere near that kind of money.
Yeah, I know. But even I don't know what he's making, $6 million a year, something like that. I'd have to think it's in that range.
That would be a drop in the bucket.
Well, another $1 million could get a nice point.
The kind of money Texas Tech is getting in from that big donor you're going to have to find a big donor. That's next year, and I probably agree with him. He's going to be in trouble.
Well, this year he's 1.3 million valuation on the nil. Next year he's purported to be 430,000 to the nil. You see how that's getting slashed by him.
He might have to play in the MAC next year.
You think so, huh?
Win a national title this year and those issues go away.
Here's a prediction for you. We had a great Final Four last year. We had a great final game. Greg had Florida winning it all the way. He was correct the whole way. How about if we have Florida and Houston again?
How
Could
about
happen.
Yeah.
They're good teams, and remember, Clayton's out, of course, and he was such a monster baller for Florida.
that? Yes, he
but
was.
but they do, and remember, this is the difference between these teams. This is the thing we have to remind ourselves all the time, is that even Florida national championship team, lots of new faces. Yes, there's a few guys back from last year's team, but it's a very new team. Matter of fact, one of their transfers, the kid from, I think, I don't know, it might have been from Penn. It's a kid from an Ivy League school, took over at the point guard position. Nice player, developing, starting to really come up big in certain games. So when you look at some of these teams, that's what we have to remember. It's like, it's so rare. Matter of fact, there's no team that I've researched this season, any of these good teams, that have brought back more than 3 key starters from last year's team. If you have 3, that's about as rare as it is. There's teams like Michigan State, Iowa State, and maybe another team or two that have 3 returning starters, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's why, and so it's like 50-75% of every roster in college basketball is new. So you have to take that into consideration, and that's why if Florida got off to a slow start, probably a lot about it to do with there was a lot of new guys, so they had to kind of learn to play together.
We're not talking NBA, but if all these kids keep going into the pros, that's going to chase a lot of pro players out, and where the hell are they going to go?
Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot different, vast amount of money.
Kind of a domino effect going on here,
Right. These kids will grab the money the NBA offers. College basketball money is nice, but nothing like the NBA, as opposed to college football players who could stay in college and make more money there than trying to make it on the National Football League team. So,
right,
the sport speaks for itself.
I think that was part, I think, of the NCAA's rationale in they lost the lawsuit, but basically being okay with the NIL, because it does encourage kids to stay. If they're not like a first round draft choice, they probably earn more staying in college, and so the more that they get kids to stay in college with a team 3-4 years maybe, the better the product is.
Yeah.
Are the NBA players really good at curling? Because that's becoming very popular.
Too much cheating though.
Yeah, as much as we all admired David Stern because the NBA blasted off under his tenure, the fact is he honestly, he did it like most people do it for the betterment of his business while he's there. But he absolutely destroyed the NBA 10, 20, 30 years ahead and further off into the future. His ability, his decision to allow these kids to come in, and then of course if they didn't move it back, you got to go to 1 year. It ruined the sport. NBA would be so much better if they allowed these kids to play at least 2 to 3 years in college, and maybe there's still a chance that they can revert back to that now that these kids are earning money. Maybe there's a way to again, I don't know. I don't think Adam Silver is creative or ingenious enough to be that kind of guy that can make that kind of a move. But I just don't see the NBA ever reaching anything close to the way it was when we were growing up, I should say. But when we had
the Bird and Magic era,
the Bird and Magic and Jordan era, that's just never going to come back again unless these kids go back to school for 2 to 3 years.
Well, Jim, I know that they announced that curling is going to become a professional sport. And I know you'll be all over that like white on rice.
Well, the problem is when I get down on the floor to get close and push that thing, I can't find my way to get up.
Well, the question there is, what is better for the curlers? Is it the Indian or the arrow? Is it the curler or the broomstick that he operates with?
I'll handle the broomstick. I think I can do that. Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get into Saturday's card. We got a nice looking card coming up, as we will each and every Saturday from now till the conference tournaments begin. And there are what we've designated 4 big games on tap, and I would say each and every one of them are big games. But we're going to go with 3, our top 3 games on Saturday's college basketball card. And Greg, I'm going to start with you. Arizona, Houston. We've been talking about the Big 12 conference. These are likely the top 2 teams inside the conference right now. What do you think happens in this game Saturday, Arizona at Houston?
We don't have. I think we do have lines for 2 of these games. I've seen Houston 4 and Michigan 2. I don't have the line on the other game, the Iowa State BYU game yet. But as far as the Houston Arizona game, that line is a little bit more than I'd like to see it at 4. But I think Houston's been a great play all year. They continue. Maybe it's because of the fact that they were looked at as, well, they're not as good as last year's team, but they sure just continue to play like it. And they've been a pretty good spread team for me this season. So, and they just proved it again with another big win just recently. Actually, didn't they have that was that tough loss they had? Was it the Iowa State game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that wasn't a win, but that was a really tough loss.
3 points on the road.
And Iowa State,
and they had a 10-point lead in the second half.
Yeah, and Iowa State gave them everything they could. So, so I don't look past that for Houston. But I just think with Arizona, I'm not sold that Arizona will be a Final Four team. Of course, we're going to take a look at the bracket. That's going to figure it all out. The problem is with Arizona is they're so young. They have a couple of their top guys are freshmen, true freshmen. And when you have a couple of guys that are true freshmen leading your team that are not Cameron Boozer like. Now, they are 5-star recruits, but they're not Cameron Boozer. They're averaging like 13, 14 a game. That's okay, but that's your leading scorer. Now, they're very deep with scoring. I think they have like 7 or 8 guys that are averaging like over 9 a game. So they have a lot of guys, but it's just one of those things where when you get into these big games at the big moment and March Madness, you need that guy. You need that. Who's my go-to guy? I don't think Arizona has that. I think they have a bunch of guys, and I think that'll work in a regular season. I just doubt it works in the tournament. And this would be a big game. So being that it's in Houston, they're going to give it the raw, and I'm just going to side with Houston. I just think that's the way to go.
Jim, which way are you going to look here in this basketball game? Big 12 game.
I like Houston a lot in this game. They just lost the game. They got a big game coming up on Monday as well. So I'm gonna go Houston here, and then against them on Monday. And in this, I mean, you got these 4 big games, and I mean, you can have some fun here. You take all these 4 teams, pick all 4 teams, take a money line parlay on all 4 teams, and have a good time watching 4 great games. I mean, these are 8 good teams, real good teams.
Which game did we leave out? Do you recall, Greg, from the list that we had talked about?
I thought there were 3.
Yeah,
we did start at 3.
Yeah, well, I had actually put in a 4th, and Mark turned it to 3. The 4th was UConn at Villanova.
Right.
But after UConn lost,
okay,
forget that one now. But that'll be a big game for Villanova, like we just talked about, because they did. I think didn't they take UConn to overtime? I think they did and lost.
You got to remember too that UConn's been playing with their food all year, and
bad spread team.
That doesn't mean a terrible spread team, but that doesn't mean they don't have a switch to turn it on. And, a lot of teams are like that. They play with their food, but I wouldn't count them out.
That's a phrase you picked up at Dom DeMarco's. I know that, Jim, playing with their food.
I never play with my food. I just eat it.
You do what you're supposed to do with it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Andy, what do you think happens here in this big game in the Big 12 Conference between these 2 teams?
Yeah, the line is a little bit higher than I would have liked. I want to see what the total is because, again, you take a look at, both of these teams score a lot of points, but they usually don't play such great defensive teams that they're going to face on Saturday in each other. I mentioned Houston, 61.6 points per game, Arizona, 68.6. So, just combined, that total works out to about 130. The total averages that these teams play, Arizona's average game is about 155. And Houston's game is about 149. So how much of an adjustment downward are they going to make between what they average on offense and average allowing on defense? I would think the defensive numbers being as significant as they are, it might, Arizona is more likely to try to force the pace. Houston's probably more likely to slow the pace down. So if we can get a total somewhere in the 143 range, which might be a little bit optimistic, I would certainly look under the total in that one. Houston beat them last year, the last time they met. I think it was I think they may have played in the tournament. Actually, I'm not
Well,
sure.
Arizona actually,
Yeah.
Houston beat him in the championship game, is what they did. Right.
Yeah, and they beat them by 72-64, I think, something like that.
Right.
So,
The Big 12 tournament.
maybe, yeah, in the Big 12 conference tournament, I believe it
And
was.
they beat him in the regular
No,
season too. They beat him
No,
both
no,
times.
it was yeah, I know it was a regular season. I think that they won that 72-64. So there is a
Well, that
little
was-
bit
yeah.
of
No, that
revenge
was the
for
tournament.
Arizona here. Either way. Oh, the NCAA
Yeah, that was the
tournament.
game. No. That
Okay,
was
there is-
the Big 12 tournament.
Oh, Big 12 tournament. That's because I thought they said was it
Yes.
March something.
March
So I
15th.
thought Oh, 15th. Okay, yeah, that would have been the champ. I thought I saw March 25th, which looked a little strange, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you're playing with a little bit of revenge, and Mark, I know that you like to use that angle when it comes to football, when teams match up and a team season ended, a really good team season ended with a loss of that foe. But I just think Arizona is tested enough that at 4, I might take a look at Arizona if I can't get to the total. But if I can get to the total, it'll definitely be an under.
And there's a big injury in the game too. And this is another reason why Houston's a good play. One of those 5-star freshmen who's the second leading scorer for Arizona, Koa Pete, is not going to play.
Yeah, that's right.
So
he has been ruled out.
Yeah. So that is a big, that's one of their big losses. And again, he is one of their go-to guys. So taking him out.
Now you have the old rally around the missing starter.
Yep.
Will that be a factor?
For the one game, but
and it's a very good team doing it. It's not like a 15-15 team losing, an NBA caliber first round draft choice, and they got to rally around them. They'd be better than 15-15. But you're talking about a team that's capable of winning a national championship, and he's only going to be gone for a short period of time, I believe.
So are you taking or laying, Andy, in this basketball game?
I'm trying to find a reason. I think the number's a little high, but the injuries factored in there. I might lean a little bit towards Arizona, but I'm probably going to look at the under. My under will be the preferred play in that game if we can get somewhere in the 140 to 143 range, which is questionable. I think we may see more like 136.
Arizona, number 2 rebounding team in the country. Arizona, number 5 team in margin of victory thus far this basketball season. With the injury, it's going to obviously affect both of those numbers. Houston, as we talked about before, number 1 team in the country with I feel, number 1 most important statistic, and that's defensive field goal percentage, which Houston almost always lives in that category every year. And I would have to give it to Kelvin Sampson. I'd say that's all about him in this particular role. But I think a person needs to, because of the injury Greg called out here, you need to wait in this basketball game because this game could rise. I mean, if it opens 4, it's going to rise. It depends upon where they open this game. But anything more than 4, you're talking about a really good Arizona basketball team with revenge from the championship game.
I think you take a money line. If you're going to bet this game, go money line right now.
Right now. Yeah, if you're exactly right.
If you like Houston.
If you like Houston, right.
Yeah, if you like Houston, yes.
I probably, just like you were saying before, Jim, what I'll probably do is I'll probably do a money line parlay with the 2 games that we'll talk about out of the 3. Because, I like to take every point I can get in those 2 games.
Now, I was going to ask you, Greg, are you teasing us because you might be playing money line on one of the 2 underdogs in the next 2 games, one or possibly
underdogs?
Both?
No underdogs.
Okay.
Because I already know who's favored in the Michigan Duke game, and it isn't Michigan. Well, I know they aren't a dog. So.
All right, guys, let's stay in the Big 12 Conference on Saturday for our second selection on our top 3 trio of games from our cast of experts here. Iowa State at Brigham Young. Remember last year, it was Iowa State. Brigham Young beat Iowa State in the first round of the tournament here. Whether that factors in or not remains to be seen. Jim, any thoughts here? Iowa State, Brigham Young. I know you like this Brigham Young basketball team, but will you like them here? That's the question.
I liked them last night because they cashed for me. And
there you go.
But I'd have to see a line to really pick this one. I like the way, of course, Brigham Young playing at home. I mean, they play very well at home. I mean, they played a good game last night, and they covered that number. Very impressive. But I'd really have to see a number. Do you have any idea what the number is?
Yeah, looking at Kenny White's power rankings, which are really, really good. We keep him in the Playbook newsletter because he's most around the number of any other odds makers that I know, or at least power ranking guys. And right now he's got Iowa State 1 in the basketball game.
That makes a pick 'em.
Wow, that's really surprising. I mean, the fact that one of your 2 star players is out for the year I'm kind of surprised by that a little bit. Maybe the fact that BYU played well again without him last night, maybe that's something. But I mean, those are two high-powered players BYU has, and one of them's out for the year now. That's a huge loss. That Saunders kid. That is huge.
18 points a game and six boards.
How about we look at Iowa State on the road? What do you think of that?
Definitely a different team. And the thing about Iowa State is that before they had their two big recent wins, they really, when you look at their schedule, they hadn't played anybody. So home or on the road. So it was good that they got those recent home wins. Now the question is, can they go on the road and beat a quality team? Because I'm not sure they have a quality road win this year. So I'd have to take a look at that.
Well, I know they are 10-3 in conference, so I'm going to see how many of those wins in conference are against, because Big 12 is considered, if not number one, then the number two conference. I'm going to take a look and see who Iowa State beat on the road. They beat.
There's just some courts that are really difficult to go to, and especially being favorite.
And Iowa State's one of them.
BYU.
BYU's another. Yeah.
The one road game of significance was January 13th at Kansas. They lost by 21. They won at Baylor.
They won at Purdue.
I'm not thrilled with Purdue. I don't think they're all. I mean, they just underachieve year after year. But it was a blowout win at Purdue, and it was back in early December.
Yeah, that was their best road win at Purdue.
Yeah, their conference road wins were against the bottom half of the league.
Well, they're 4-3 straight up into the number on the road. Iowa State is so far this basketball season. And BYU's always had this really strong home court. I don't know if it's as good now as it's been before in the past, but I also know that BYU does play with that little bit of that what I call LTKO, League Knockout Tournament Revenge, chip on their shoulder in this basketball game.
Not only that, Mark, by the way, only 7-6 in the conference.
Really?
Makes this a huge game for BYU.
And their last three home games, they lost to Arizona, they lost to Houston, and they beat Colorado in overtime as a 15-point favorite.
That's not very impressive. This is even BYU has not always played teams of this ilk.
That's true too.
Yes, these are very tough teams in this conference now.
Yeah,
and so you got to kind of throw out some of the stuff that they did in the old days when they weren't matched up against clubs like this.
Yeah, it was back in the older days, Jim, when that altitude seemed to mean a lot more than it does now, and I don't know if that's because teams are they've accustomed to it now more. They play there more now. BYU's in a conference now against teams that come in there regularly as opposed to not in the past. But they used it to their advantage in the past, and I don't know if that's equaled out here right now in these times.
Yeah, the Big 12 is still
very true.
Considered maybe the best conference heading into the season. It's interesting that I think most people look and see that the Big 10 is probably the best conference so far this year, and yet the Big 10 has not won a national championship since 2000. So that is going to be.
Was that Michigan State?
Yes, it was.
That Michigan State?
Yep. So 26 years, the last time a Big 10 team won a national title, and they might have the best teams going into the tournament next month.
Well, I don't know.
Tom Izzo again.
I don't know about the best teams. They have one team that I would say that could be the best team.
Illinois is really good though.
Illinois is good, but I can't discount. I mean, you got to downgrade Arizona a little bit. Houston's still a damn good team. I can't count them out. Or Duke.
Mark, have you got where Michigan ranks defensively in that category? Where Houston's number one field goal percentage?
I do not, Andy. I just, what I do is I mark down the top 6 teams and I focus in on them moving forward with them, and they're not in the top 6. Duke's number 2, by the way. Duke is number 2. They play some pretty staunch defense.
Which would that be an interesting matchup, because Duke and Houston played last year, and Houston beat Duke with Duke being a favorite. But if Duke is number 2 in defensive field goals, I'd have to like Duke in this rematch, because there's no question that Duke is the much better offensive team than Houston, and yet they're so close, basically 1 and 2, that it's a standoff on the defense.
Yeah, and Duke allows the third fewest amount of points per game in the country too.
Yeah.
So they're bringing a lot to the table this year. Duke is.
The thing with, but let me just finish up on this BYU
Sure.
game. I can't find a play in the game because of the Saunders out for BYU. I'd like to take Iowa State, but their poor record on the road against other than the bottom feeders in the. If this line were 4 or 5, I might feel more comfortable because they could lose the game straight up and still cover. But basically, if that line is like 1.5 BYU, which I could understand it because of the injury that they've suffered, you're asking Iowa State to do something that they haven't been able to do. It depends again what you consider BYU. Are they a team that's closer to the top of the Big 12 or the bottom of the Big 12 with their 7-6 record in conference? So that makes it a very difficult game for me to play.
Andy, I'd like to see what the sharp money comes in on this early.
Yeah.
This is a Saturday game. I'd like to see where if there's any sharp money out there, because right now they might be waiting a little bit because they can't get down big dollars. But
yeah,
I'd like to see what they do and let the market.
I don't know that Vegas. I don't know many places in Vegas that put advanced lines up prior to like 5 p.m. of the day before the game.
There's some offshore stuff.
Yeah,
that I can
probably
look
track
at.
that.
Yeah, I'll look at a little bit later today and see where they go, because there's some big bet players out there that I can see what they make the market, and that gives me a little bit of a lead to what to go with.
I could see them overvaluing. Not them, believing the public. Well, see, the thing with the public is we don't know how much they follow club basketball as far as injuries go, because if they follow BYU in the injury, they're likely to bet Iowa State. Better record, better position in the standings, which then might make BYU a potential play as a home underdog against a team as good as Iowa State is that doesn't play well on the road.
Another thing I think it's important this time of year, what we have to always remember is we're getting to that middle point where the regular season is about to come to an end and conference tournament play is about to begin. And let's say Iowa State, they've just won 2 huge games at home. They did what they had to do. They had to prove that they could beat these really good teams, and they did it. And now they're looking at the schedule and they're going, oh, we're going to go to BYU. Well, what do we have to prove there? Nothing. BYU, meanwhile, they've got a lot to prove. They got their player down.
Yes.
They've been losing some games. They know they're probably going to the tournament, of course, but they got to get something going here. They got a lot to prove. It's
even though they had a good game the other night, this is an excellent point. They did lose that game. You're right. They're struggling. Yes, definitely.
So you got to watch, because that's the one thing we always think about as handicappers is you always think about the worst thing that you hate is you just don't know whether or not teams will come to play. That's the one thing that is so important. You don't want to throw your money away on a game where a team just decides, I didn't come to play. I didn't really need it. Sort of like when Kansas went to Iowa State, got blown out.
Sort of like the tanking in the NBA is what you're saying, Greg, right?
Keep in mind that the win against
in the NBA. Come on.
The win against Kansas was a one-sided win from the beginning. That's when Kansas, was without Peterson. The game against Houston, the win against Houston, they expended a lot of energy in that game to hold off Houston 70-67. Now they do have 5 days off before the BYU game, but keep in mind what Greg said. They had 2 very satisfying wins that helped them. Now they're going to the altitude against an undermanned team who absolutely needs this win. Everyone says, I think we talked earlier, BYU is going to be in the tournament. Hey, they're 7-6 in conference. Big difference between 7-7 and 8-6. Because will they get? I don't know, have their non-conference schedule in front of me, but this is a critical win for BYU. So the more I'm thinking of it as I'm talking about it, I'm looking for a reason to play BYU in this spot.
Well, Greg, let me ask you that question on the heels of what Andy just brought up. There was a time not too far back along we go that to make the NCAA basketball tournament, you number one had to have a winning record, but you also had to have a winning record inside your conference.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing a lot of that so much lately here. Is that going to be? I'm sorry?
No, we're not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as it used to. You can be 2 games under 500 in your conference now and make the tournament.
Yeah, and you know why? I'll tell you exactly why. They want to keep some more of those mid-majors out. That's why they had that rule about you had to have a winning record, because how many teams in a 12-team conference can have a winning record when they're playing more than half their games against the other teams in that conference? So what that does, if you don't need a winning record in the conference, well, now you take a bit away from, let's say, a second-place team in Conference USA. Well, that's
Well, let's say Miami of Ohio if they lose.
Okay,
Andy,
yeah.
Andy,
So that's what's happening.
Are you trying to say that money and ratings have something to do with it?
No, I'm trying to say that money and ratings have everything to do with it.
Good correction, Andy.
Because you may play in a major conference, but if you can't have a 500 record and you're dominating in a mid-major conference and you finish second because you didn't win your conference tournament, but you're like 18-2 in the conference and you have a couple of decent non-conference wins, I would say that team that finished second but lost its conference tournament, and they were 18-2 in conference play and had some decent non-conference wins, has a better chance of winning a first-round game, depending upon where they're seated, than a team that is 9-11 in a major conference.
Well, guys, let's wrap everything up here for Saturday with our third and final game on the card. And these happen to be the two top-rated teams on the Kenny White Power Rankings of the entire college basketball FBS teams. And that happens to be Michigan traveling to Duke. And, Andy, is this still called the Big Ten ACC? Do they still do that? Where was a special?
I don't know if they do it, but I know that a lot of those conference versus conference matchups take place in November now.
Okay.
Challenges.
This is a neutral court game.
Washington, D.C., which is kind of like Madison Square Garden. It's a second home, or second or third home for Duke.
Well, it being a neutral court game, according to Kenny White's power rankings, his number on this game would be pick. Jim, who are you going to pick in this basketball game?
What state is it in?
Disarray, the state of disarray.
It's in the District of Columbia. Well, I don't know. No, they're playing. I think in is that Maryland? They say Washington D.C., but I don't know where the arena is.
It could be in Landover. Who knows where it is? Right.
I'll tell you, that's brutal. That's a brutal line. It's a brutal game. Not every game is playable. It used to be if this game was in Duke, they're going to get the whistle. They always did, especially in the old Coach K days. But I don't know. This is a toss-up to me.
That makes Pick'em a good line.
It is.
Greg, does the fact that Michigan has lost 10 of the last 11 games in this
By the way,
series
it is in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Arena.
Okay.
Yeah, in D.C. itself.
I mean, I might have to go before we get to it, but my top play of the week is Houston. I like Houston, and that legitimately is my top play for Saturday.
I sort of read through the lines on that, Jim. Right.
Yeah. I know you said you wanted to have that before we sign off because I'm going to have to sign off.
Okay, real quick, Greg, does the fact that, like I mentioned here, that Duke has beat Michigan 10 of the last 11 matchups mean anything in this game?
No, because they haven't played since most of these kids were 8 years old. So 8 to 10 years old. So
2013 was their last time they played.
Yeah. And as a Michigan fan, I do remember most of those losses. So, but
come on, you remember back when you were 8 years old?
No,
you probably remember better because you were 8 years old at the time.
No, yeah, they were.
You weren't 8 years old. I get it.
Not me.
I get it.
Even though I do remember, of course, when I was in my 20s and they lost to Duke in the national championship game. But this is one of those things where, in my mind, I really don't have many doubts. Michigan's a better team. And I think this is a good Duke team, but this is not last year's Duke team. Cameron Boozer is a hell of a player. He's going to be one of the best freshmen in the game, no question about it. But I don't think they're as deep as last year's team. And again, they were an ACC team. They don't get battle tested week in and week out like Michigan does. And this is the best Michigan team that I've seen in a long time. I remember telling this to Jim, it was early January when they were 10-1, jump all over Michigan. This is a great team. They were killing everybody. The Gonzaga 40, the Auburn 40. And they still do it. They still just blow out teams left and right. It's no fluke. They're well coached. These kids know how to play together. And because they're the number one team in the country, that's something to them. They just got that ranking this week, and they proved it in their first game this week when they blew out. I don't even remember who they blew out. But I expect they're going to put their A game in here, like championship A game, something to prove. And that's why I'd be very surprised if they lost this game.
They blew out Purdue at Purdue.
There you go. And Purdue was actually playing some pretty good ball. They had lost 3 straight, and then they had won 3 or 4 straight, a couple of good wins, and they just handled Purdue. So,
Jim, I know you got to run, but before you run, I want to run this by our audience because we're going to close out with this, and it's what I reviewed last week, and I'm going to continue to keep hitting on it because it really paves the way to gold in cutting down the nets in the NCAA tournament. Ken Palm, again, 25 teams, his top 25 teams in offensive and defensive efficiency, and when they rank together in those teams, there's 11 teams that hit both offensively and defensive efficiency, 11 of them. And I'm saying this because since 2002, only one of these teams that has not won the NCAA basketball tournament. So now we're down to 11 teams that fit the double quadrant check boxes for Ken Palm. Number 11, Vanderbilt. A little bit of a surprise to you, Andy, Vanderbilt?
Yeah, it really is a surprise. I would think they'd be good in one and the other. I'd probably think that they'd be better with the offensive ranking than the defensive ranking.
Number 10, Texas Tech. Will they stay there or not? That remains the question. Number 9, Connecticut. Number 8, Gonzaga. Number 7, Iowa State. Number 6, Illinois, who is indeed a very good basketball team. Number 5, Florida, a team on the rise. Number 4, Houston, we just talked about them. Number 3, Arizona, we just talked about them. And the number 2 and the number 1 teams are the game that we're talking about right now, Duke and Michigan. So we have one heck of a basketball game to tune in on Saturday between Duke and Michigan.
I will definitely be watching the line move on this and hopefully follow some sharps that might have an idea because it's and of course live betting, which is my thing. I've been watching that with my finger on the button.
Well, you guys enjoy the games. This has been a really good, informative show. We're going to do it again next week. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the bubble watch and exactly maybe a little bit more of who we see making the NCAA Sweet 16 Final Four, our favorite games on next weekend's card. So until next week, for our cast of experts here on the show, Jim Feist from Las Vegas, Andy Iskoe from Las Vegas, and Greg DePalma, our producer extraordinaire. This is Marc Lawrence, reminding you to always to remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.